This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ojanen. I'm Jim Quist. It's time to talk some football. We'll look a little bit at men's and women's basketball as well because it starts this week. In case you were under a rock someplace, we are in November and no more daylight savings time. So it's, dark.
Way to start this thing on a negative note, Jim. Jeez.
Oof. All right, let's get into some more negative notes. On Friday, it was North Carolina finally coming up with a win against Syracuse. Syracuse, running 18-19 freshmen on the field there. It was 27-10, the final score there for Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels. Any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, what you said there, because of the way Syracuse went about this game, what I would argue made it UNC's most complete game of the season. They racked up 426 total yards, which is a season high, held Syracuse to 147. The Tar Heels ran for 209, led by Damon June. He had 101 yards rushing. And I thought it was cute that Fran Brown tried to pull a Belichick and start a former lacrosse player at quarterback. His name was Joe Filardi, and he was 4 of 18 passing for 39 yards, and he missed on his first 8 targets. His first completion was a pass in the triple coverage, so whatever. But yeah, and we've talked about this, and I posted this on the ACC Nation TikTok, it was only a matter of time before Carolina won one of these games. We've seen them improve, especially defensively, these past few weeks, and we knew they were going to get one, and it finally came to head here. And getting their first conference win of the season over Syracuse.
The injury bug has just absolutely killed Syracuse, and they're just, wallowing in this mess. Yeah. I think they have solid coaching. I think they have the potential to certainly. They've got some really promising players on the team, so it's a team to watch in the future. It's not somebody to discount.
Yeah, and you can criticize Fran Brown for the decision to start the quarterback, but like you said, this is a lot. There's going to be a lot of what ifs about this season because this team was humming so well with Stephen Jelly was there, and they looked like they were going to be somewhat close to repeating last year's feats. I don't think they were going to get the 10 wins with this schedule, but they certainly were going to make a bowl, and they're just it. This team is a shell of itself, and it's disappointing to see. But I don't get the people thinking Fran Brown is going to get fired. Given the current state of the coaching cycle, given you are Syracuse and you're probably going to be on the bottom tier of coaching jobs, what more do you expect? Hell, don't be surprised, depending on how desperate some coaches or some programs get, if Fran Brown gets calls after the season. Not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but when you win 10 games at Syracuse in your first year, you're going to turn some heads, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got some calls.
He strikes me as being the kind of guy who wants to really build something special there. I don't see him moving out of there anytime soon, but at the same time, he's also got to be realistic. He has goals and aspirations, so at some point, that magic phone call may come. And somebody will snatch him up out of there because he's a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
He has shown that, and I think again, give him a couple of seasons at Syracuse, and I think that's going to be a dynamic program. I just everything feels right about that, about how it's all progressing. So don't get all upset. I know that we just give North Carolina and Belichick the what for all the time, but realistically, that's a team too that has got to go through some really tough times in order to build themselves where they need to be. Now, whether or not it's going to happen with Bill Belichick at the helm, anybody's guess. Whether he takes off on his own because he handle the criticism or whatever. Again, I I believe I've said I'd like to see him stick around for at least 2 seasons, maybe more, just to see what he can do to prove that he has the capability, which I
Mhm.
believe he does, to create something special there for North Carolina. Now, it's wait and see because hey, we're at the end of pretty much the end of the season now, and so we're going to start seeing some moves by people,
Mhm.
administrations, coaches, maybe even some players are going to say, well, this is not what I thought, and I'm
Mhm.
heading out. So, um,
And one thing we should give mention too, talking about the improvement of the defense, the ACC leader in sacks is Melkart Abu-Jawad of the Tar Heels. He has 7 sacks on this season, 5 in the last 2 games.
this is progression, you know, and the team. Uh, I think overall you see some improvement there. There's some things that are just really swing and a miss, kind of like some baseball action I saw here recently, and it's just I know it's frustrating to watch that, and it's very easy for all of us to just like blast them, but give it a little bit of time. I just really think there's something that could happen there. I mean, that's the case with just about any team in any conference anywhere. If you get the right coach, the right combination of people, and you get some people who know how to recruit and work the transfer portal, and you get that NIL money in there, well, gee whiz, it's hard to say where you might be. Next game up, boy, talking about just absolutely ruining um, a year. We have we've talked about the fact that Mario Cristobal doesn't have, it doesn't appear to have killer instinct. I think this game is probably proof in the pudding. When SMU plays you, it gets you into overtime and beats you 26-20, and you have been a top ranked team good portion of this year, and SMU really has not been. Says a lot about Rhett Lashley and his crew, but it also speaks volumes about Mario Cristobal. And boy, the chatter is already there, Will, about who's next. Who's the next coach for Miami? I'm going, really? No, come on, man.
So I put this out on my TikTok on Saturday, and it was Mario Cristobal in September, October versus Mario Cristobal in November.
Oh,
The September, October Mario was the fire Mario, the one that shoots out the fireballs. The November Mario was the little tiny Mario. So it feels like once November hits, his programs just tend to not be very good.
I,
As far as this game goes, this was the first time all season Miami left the state of Florida. It was a kind of a yeah, and
it's an
this was
anomaly.
the first true road environment
Hmm.
they faced all season long, and I don't know if it was because of that they kind of struggled a little bit in this game. Carson Beck threw 2 interceptions. Kevin Jennings had 365 yards passing in this game. SMU only ran for 23 yards. This game changed on a roughing the passer call on 4th down late in the game that put SMU in field goal range to tie it and send it to overtime. And Carson Beck was picked off in overtime, and then SMU kicked the game-winning field goal. Kudos to SMU because they got this. This is a big ranked win for them, and hey, they were able to lock up Rhett Lashley because he was the name that was mentioned in some of this coaching carousel stuff, which gets wilder and wilder by the week. And they've locked him up for, an extension, I think, through 2031, I want to say it was. I don't remember the exact number offhand, but Yeah, it's key to hold a good coach like that, for a while, and they're doing that, and they're going bowling again. So
Yeah,
kudos to the Mustangs. They're going back to a bowl, and they're still not out of this ACC championship game race either.
not at all, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But SMU is, I think Rhett Lashley has a lot of incentive to be there. People go, SMU, who's SMU? We have short memories or we don't know the history of the sport. Um, that is a team that had a lot of very awesome players coming through, on a regular basis. And they were to some degree a powerhouse. And they want to get back to that now that things have changed and that they're in a major conference. It that opportunity for them to build something special and to build that program up into a national powerhouse is certainly there. I mean, I think you really have to be realistic about looking at SMU and going, this is a team, the future is very bright. And, Rhett Lashley is just in the right place at the right time. And I think he just wants to ride that wave and make something special happen. Because if that occurs and he's at the helm, man, he can write his ticket to anywhere, anytime. And, if that's what he wants. So another close game, Duke over Clemson. Boy, surprise, surprise, 46-45. And Dabo ended up getting fined by the conference for some comments that he made in regard to the game. Um, this was not the only team that was fined by the ACC for some inappropriate things that occurred. The passions are running high.
Yeah, this game was more like the Uke Blue Evils and Clemson Tigers because there was no D.
No.
Yeah, Duke scored 21 it was 21-7 Duke at the end of the first quarter, and then Clemson came back, scored 21 in the second, ended up being 28 all at halftime. Competitive game back and forth in the second half. Duke scored with 40 seconds left, went for two, and it got the 2-point conversion, all set up by pass interference call that I would deem it questionable, the one that Mario or Dabo got fined for. Um, so yeah, Clemson outgained Duke 560 to 439. But Darian Mintz had 361 yards and four touchdowns. Cooper Barcotti, six catches, 127 yards, including a 77-yard touchdown on just an absolute busted coverage because he saw the play. There was nowhere within in the same zip code of him. Like somebody missed an assignment in a bad, bad way. Cade Klubnik in the last 385 yards and two touchdowns. Antonio Williams, 10 catches, 142 yards. And I floated this possibility on the ACC Nation TikTok on Saturday of Clemson potentially missing a bowl. Now they're 3-5. Their final four games are Florida State, Louisville, Furman, and South Carolina. Like
Furman's
they're going to beat
that.
Furman. We're not going to worry about that. They have Florida State at home. That's going to be a toss-up game. But with the way Florida State played on Saturday, that's not going to be that's a losable game, absolutely. At Louisville, they're going to be an underdog.
Mhm.
South Carolina rivalry game. South Carolina is not nearly as good this year as they have been in years past, or they definitely have uh, failed expectations. But still a losable game. It's at their place. You never know.
Yeah, yeah, and with what you typically see with teams when you start losing games, and I really believe this is just always a leadership thing. When the players stop believing and stop playing, uh, you have to point at the coaches. They're not inspiring their players. They're not pumping them up, and this is really what Clemson is in danger of here is that they're losing games. This is not typical for Clemson in recent history. You go back further, it is. And they don't quite know how to deal with this. This is messing with these kids' minds, and it's messing with the fans' minds as well. Because you hear so many people talking about let's get rid of Dabo. Come on, really? Something wrong with you. Well, something. It's this is just one of those things where it's a possibility, like you said, that they may just get into this slump and just, you know, hands up
Hmm.
and really not play out, you know. I hope that doesn't happen, but it can. Yeah, I've seen better teams that happens to. If it
Now,
happens to Clemson, they're not going bowling.
yeah, let me throw out this question to you, Jim.
Hmm.
So with Clemson underachieving this season, Dabo not really finally using the transfer portal and they're not really working out the way he thought.
Right.
He'd rather recruit his own people, right? Given the current state of things, is it possible Dabo just kind of steps down at the end of the season?
It's funny, that certainly has been lurking in the back of my mind, and I know a lot of other people. Obviously, you asking that question also indicates that you're thinking about it. I think this is that piece of the conversation has been out there. Um, it's Coaching is a frustrating thing. And as we've talked repeatedly about how NIL and the transfer portal has really just changed everything so much, and Dabo's one of these guys, he's sort of old school, right? He wants to coach. He's more about, the recruiting those high school students and establishing those relationships. And I am all for that. Uh, but that's not the only equation now. And it's just making it that much more difficult for guys like him to be successful. And they don't know which way to turn sometimes. So you just get to a point where, maybe he's going to be the one who just throws up his hands and says, you know what? The fun, the love of this game is gone for me. And it's possible. I mean, people would say, I don't believe that. But who would have, I keep coming back to this. Who would have ever thought Tony Bennett would walk away the way he did at Virginia basketball?
Mhm.
Most people's mouths were, wide open. Their jaws hit the floor. It was like, what? I know that we talked, I think, with Mike Barber about this, but, he's kind of had the inkling that something along this line was going to happen.
Hmm.
But when it happens, it's like it's still shocking, and
Yeah.
I can see this happening with Dabo. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think he's getting fired. I don't think they
no,
would fire him.
that'd be
He's done too much for this program to let him go in a
right.
situation like that. But could he just go on his own accord, like resign, step down, retire, whatever? I can buy that possibility actually.
Yeah, and to be frank about it, if he's in the same situation that a lot of these other coaches who have gone, bye bye, for this specific reason. If he's there, if he his passion is gone, his love of the game, there's no joy left. He doesn't feel like he's accomplishing something. I would strongly encourage him. Yes, get out of it before it absolutely ruins you and makes you bitter. You don't want to be there. You have many years left to live and that you can enjoy. It doesn't mean that you can't go someplace else and coach later, because you can. Anybody I think would love to have you as a coach, but sometimes you just have to step away from stuff. And maybe, um, and I don't want to start. I certainly wouldn't want to start any rumors or anything, but the signs are there. I mean, certainly it could happen, and I wouldn't be shocked if it did. Will I like I said, I'd hate to see him do that, but again, if there's no joy in what you're doing, dude, don't beat yourself up. So let's go on to this next game. Virginia Tech, a little bit of improvement each week. But not enough here to do anything to shut Louisville down. But Louisville had a little bit of a problem with Virginia Tech there up front, but they came away with a nice win, 28-16. I wouldn't say it was a definitive win. Now I'm going to get a lot of arguments from Cardinals fans because they just like to argue those points. Oh, we were dominant, blah blah blah. No, you weren't. Um, in fact, this showed some of your weaknesses, and you do have weaknesses on the team. You should admit that. But teams that see their own weaknesses and maybe are not putting enough points on the board, they find ways to come up out of that and change things during the game and succeed. That's a winning team. And Coach Brom is a winning coach. He knows how to make stuff happen. That's what happened with Louisville against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and this game was all about the run game for the Cardinals. By the way, yeah, you talking about some of the Louisville fans? I think our friend Jeremy needs to come get some of these people. They were at us on Reddit for not talking enough about the game last week, and there wasn't a whole lot to say.
It was 50 some seconds, man. That's all we talked about them.
Yeah, what do you want? What
But
do you want to?
hey, hang on a second, Will. Now that that's been brought up, I'm just going to tell you one thing. You see that sign that's over our shoulders? It says ACC Nation. So that means that we're covering, depending on the sport, 18 teams. Got it? 53 seconds. Be happy.
We we only have so much time to do this. You have your life. I work a full-time job, plus have a life outside this. I can only do so many things. So if we miss something, if we don't talk enough about something,
Here's
sorry.
what,
We
here's
can
what,
only do so much in given our lives. But
yeah, be happy with it.
yeah. But as far as the game goes, yeah, like I said, this game was all about Louisville's run game. They ran for a grand total of 235 yards. Isaac Brown had 126 and a touchdown. He left this game at one point and didn't come back. I don't believe he came back. I know Q1 Brown
Back
came
this
in, had
first.
94 yards, ran for two touchdowns. That kind of ultimately won the game for Louisville. They pulled away. Another story of this game, Louisville's defense. They're the number one defense in the ACC for a reason in terms of yards allowed a game. They held Virginia Tech to 240 yards in this game. Kyron Jones only had 76 yards rushing or 76 yards passing, excuse me, in this game. He did have a little bit of success on the ground, but they were able to hold Marcellus Hawkins, who had a really, really good game in Cal last week. They really held him in check. I think he only had like 30 something yards on the ground. They they're the thing, it's like this is a different Louisville team than what we've seen these first couple of years under Jeff Brom.
Mhm.
Because you have these quarterbacks who he's really developed into something and complemented with the running game. Now they're doing it kind of old school with the run game and defense. Um, and that's a mark of a good coach. And we've heard Jeff Brom's name come up as a potential candidate for one of these SEC jobs or whatever. I personally don't think he's going to entertain those. I think Louisville's going to lock him up. I mean, he's from there. He's in the city he clearly loves. I don't know if there's enough money in the world that would um, let him go anywhere else. I think he's going to be locked at Louisville for a long time.
Isn't he connected to Auburn and rumor mill?
Yeah, he's been connected to all the big jobs, really. Auburn,
Good
LSU,
coach.
Penn State.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
but
good
I
coach.
think I think he's gonna get a contract extension to stay at Louisville for a while, and I'm not gonna worry too much about it right now.
And let me, my father-in-law visited with us for a couple of days and over the weekend. And one of the things, one of my sister-in-laws lives in Louisville, works for Louisville, the University of Louisville Hospital. So, um, and we were talking about the cities that we like and where we would, enjoy living. And he pointed out that among the community in which I live, but also Louisville was one of the highest ranked communities. And of course, there's all kinds of variables, but it is an area in which I could find myself very comfortably living because I like the people there. I like what it has to offer. It's very similar to where I live in a lot of ways, and so it's a good place. So as a coach, you come in and you've got a connection to the school, you've got a connection to the community. Your brother's there with you, and you're building something, and that's what's going on there too. They're building a program. They're building uh, a team that's probably going to be dominant as the years continue because it's building a reputation, and the more it goes on, why would you leave that? I mean, yeah, money talks, but you know what? Typically, every time you go for the big contracts, just ask Jimbo Fisher about what it was like, going from Florida State to Texas A&M. Ask a lot of other coaches who have gone from one place. Ask Brian Kelly. Of course, Brian Kelly's is
He'd
Brian.
probably punch you in the face
Yeah,
if you
I,
asked him.
I would get him first, just
Yeah.
to.
Jimbo, he would probably talk a million miles an hour, and you probably and all you'd under only thing you'd got out of it is he is really rich.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's miserable. So it's not always the best thing to go for the money. It's the environment. It's where you are, the
And
opportunities that are afforded to you, and if you have family, that's key. It's very important.
yeah, and you look at where would you consider Louisville in terms of the echelon of ACC jobs? Certainly like it's certainly top five.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think, what schools are the best jobs in the ACC? I would definitely put Louisville in the top five, where LSU, they might be a borderline top five. They're probably top five SEC,
Yeah.
but are they better than Alabama, Texas? Um, and I'm just trying to think, maybe they're the number three job,
You've
at the
got
bottom. And
Georgia
I'm
in there too.
and
So
Georgia'd be there. I think it's kind of I think Georgia's a really good job too. I think it's kind of a toss up between the two, but at worst, number four.
mm,
I don't, it's and I could argue Louisville is like the third or fourth best job in the ACC. So it's like there's less pressure to win, less pressure at Louisville. Yeah, you're going to get more money in the SEC, but what's it going to matter if you kind of keep LSU at the same level and get fired in 3 years?
yeah. All right, moving on. Pitt over Stanford. This is a kind of definitive game for Pitt. Stanford did not do too badly in this game. They continue to just sort of inch their way forward. 35-20, the Panthers out on top of the Cardinal.
Congratulations, everybody. We all had 10 more yards rushing than Stanford did on Saturday. Because of sacks and the lack of a running game, Stanford finished the game with negative 10 yards rushing.
Ouch.
They said they were sacked 5 times. Pitt's defense was very, very Pitt-like, a vintage Pitt. We'll just say that. Yeah, Ben Gulbranson threw 3 picks and he was benched in this game too. But Pitt's offense continues to roll 466 total yards in this game, over 400 yards in 4 of the past 5 games. Mason Heinschel, 304 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he did throw 2 picks in this game.
Mhm.
They did not have Des Reed, but they brought in a freshman named Jakirian Turner who had 127 yards on the ground, so they didn't really miss a beat with him. And if you look at a potential coaching like candidate in the offseason, Not, I'm not talking about Pat Marduzzi, their offensive coordinator, Kate Bell, I think will get some looks at some of like the group of five jobs out there because he's doing a really, really good job of this Pitt offense.
Might even get a bump.
Or we see, or worse, he can get a bump in pay.
There's a
I'm
couple
sure
of,
Pitt's got some money.
yeah, well, they should. Notre Dame had a heck of a time defeating Boston College, and I kind of expected it to be this way every time these two teams play. Um, I don't know what it is, but you know, it's back and forth. 25-10, the final, the Irish over the Eagles.
I will say, second week of the road, Boston College has looked competitive in this game or in these games. It was 12-7 at halftime because I think there was like a missed extra point by Notre Dame, and I think they went for two, and the other one didn't get it or whatever. But funny thing is, Notre Dame outgained Boston College 286 to 163 in the first half. Boston College kicked a field goal in the third quarter to make it 12-10, but then gave up two touchdowns to Jeremiah Love, including a 94-yard touchdown run that ultimately sealed it. Dylan Lonergan started for Boston College and was ineffective. Grayson James came in the second quarter and played the rest of the game. The Eagles once again cannot run the football. 33 yards rushing on 12 carries in this game. They've lost eight in a row, and they're 1-8 on the season. Um, they're just playing out the string at this point. I expected a lot more out of Boston College. I've been pretty disappointed with their season.
But they're not giving up. So they continue to give people what fours. Now, this next game, I did not watch. I did tune in to watch a stream. I I didn't catch the call letters of the station. I think it might have been KSFO. Anyway, it's a station that's carrying Cal Bears football, and was watching their play-by-play and color analyst, who I might note do a fantastic job. I was very impressed um, with what they were doing and how they were presenting the facts. You know, a lot of guys who do play-by-play and color for teams tend to be a little bit on the homer side sometimes. These guys were very clearly just right down the middle of the road and did an excellent broadcast. I was just extremely impressed with the way they were pulling up facts and throwing stuff out, not just for Cal, but also for Virginia, which made it interesting. So um, shout out to those guys. In another game, I think I'm gonna spend some time watching that again. So this one came down to the last, literally seconds in the game before um, we had a definitive winner. It felt like we were going to go into an overtime again, and I'm going like, this is just insane. And then Virginia came up with a very critical interception, which they immediately put on the ground and put a couple of extra, put some points up on the board in the form of a touchdown. Final 31-21, Virginia over Cal.
This is the best Virginia's offense has looked since the Florida State game. They outgained Cal 456 to 263. I've said in the weeks leading up to this game that I thought Virginia was going to lose this game because if Jaren Kiawe Sagapulatelli was on, then Cal would win this game. And he almost had an opportunity to win it because Virginia up three decided to go for it, which I like the idea of going for it on 4th and 1 up three, trying to basically go for the kill. It didn't work, and it gave Cal a chance to go down and tie or go for the win. But right away through a game sealing pick six to Cam Robinson, who, hey, Virginia won a game by two scores, everybody, for the first time in a while. No, Jamari Taylor in this game, 105 yards, two touchdowns. He looked really, really good for the Who's. They ran for 194 yards as a team. I would say they still could have finished some drives better. Obviously, they went for fourth down a couple of times and didn't get them. Cal only had 8 yards rushing in this game. Its only TD pass came on tight end Mason Minnie's 40-yard touchdown pass to Kendrick Raphael. Their stud defender, Cato Luave, left early with an injury in the second quarter and did not return this game. That had an effect on this game too. But Virginia is 8-1 for the first time since 1990 and are ranked in they're 11th in the coaches poll and 12th in the AP poll.
Wonders never cease. In this next game, I expected a little more out of Wake Forest. And maybe that was a fool's errand on my part, but Florida State defending the home turf just really laid the wood to Wake Forest, 42-7, the final score.
I'm not sure Wake Forest ever showed up for this game.
Yeah, yeah, apparently not.
Florida State outgained them 421 to 247. Robbie Ashford was just bad in this game. Threw for 93 yards and a pick and got benched for Deshaun Purdy. Uh, just not a lot of good things to say about Wake in this game. It was just like the one touchdown came in the fourth quarter when it was well out of hand.
Mhm.
Tommy Castellanos, 12 of 16 for 271 yards in this game. Deuce Robinson, 5 catches for 148 yards. I think the game script in this game is what Florida State needs to do as a team. Like they ran 56 plays, had 40 runs and 16 passes. And I think if Florida State is going to have success, they need to run the ball a lot more than they have been and rely on the passing game, a little less. And yeah, I know they got some good receivers out there and Deuce Robinson, Makai Danzy, who's just an all-around athlete. But I think Florida State needs to do more of this going forward. They certainly are in a position to get to a bowl again. Yeah, so nice to see Florida State rebound after a tough stretch.
Yeah. NC State upsetting Georgia Tech. Boy, this it's just upsetting the proverbial apple cart in a major way. 48-36, the final score there with the Pack over the Yellow Jackets.
A combined 84 points and 1,142 total yards.
Crazy.
Pretty impressive for NC State having over 500 yards, considering they were without Hollywood Smothers in this game. They were without Justin Jolie, who was injured in the last game. CJ Bailey, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jaden Scott, in Smothers' absence, ran for 196 yards. As a whole, the Wolfpack ran for 243 yards. Georgia Tech had 511 total yards in this game. Haynes King had a hand in, or excuse me, they had 559 total yards in this game. Haynes King had a hand in 511 of them. He threw for 408 yards and ran for 103. Um, really, the Georgia Tech defense is the story of the game. They have had moments where they've been bad, but they've been able to right it. They never were able to right it in this game, and even with an amazing effort by Haynes King, it just wasn't enough because the defense let them down. And it was their first loss of the season, obviously the first conference loss. And the irony of it all is Virginia is now the only undefeated team left in the ACC, but they have one loss, which is to NC State in a non-conference game. This is the repercussions of being in a 17-team conference.
Which is absolutely driving so many people crazy who are trying to analyze this whole thing. And I don't understand. We're as a weird conference, blah, blah, blah. Like Will said, 17-team conference, you have to make adjustments. This is something that's been going on for years. Have you not been paying attention?
It's
So,
impossible to really gauge and follow 17 teams and know exactly what's going on, every single one of them.
all right. So, with that, here's the ACC standings as of this moment. Virginia at 5-0 in the conference, Georgia Tech 5-1, Pitt 5-1, Louisville 4-1, SMU 4-1. Overall, Virginia is at 8-1, and so is Georgia Tech. Both of those losses are to NC State. As Will's pointing out, one counts as a conference loss, one does not. And that will come into play as we get closer to the championship. Pitt is 7-2 overall, Louisville is 7-1 overall, and SMU is 6-3. I sure wish that SMU had not lost to Baylor and to they played what, Texas Tech or
TCU.
TCU. Yeah,
You're in the right state.
yeah, I'm somewhere down there. I'm about as cognizant of what's going on, and never mind. Um, Anyway, the first CFP rankings are coming out on election day. Have you voted yet? So if you haven't, make sure that you go out and vote on the 4th. That is Tuesday. And let's see. Looking at other things here, you and I were talking about this a little bit. So Georgia Tech was originally projected to win the ACC and then to go on to win the ACC championship earlier on. Now it's a little different story. There's a possibility that Georgia Tech may get bumped out of the CFP, and Miami is lurking, but they might also get bumped out of the CFP. Now, if Virginia goes into the ACC championship game and wins, they get an invitation to the CFP because it's an automatic. But if they lose, guess what we have on our hands, ladies and gentlemen? Another Florida State situation. There is a high likelihood, because of strength of schedule, that Virginia, if they lose in the ACC championship game, we're making a lot of assumptions here, would not be invited to the CFP. And there seems to be some behind the door activity going on about this already from SEC teams who are saying, hey, we ought to be ahead of this team if this situation occurs. So I just want you guys to be prepared.
Yeah, it's going to happen, and we're going to find out those playoff rankings Tuesday night, as you mentioned. And there is a chance Virginia could be in the top 12. I think they'll probably be just on the outside, looking in. This is just my guess. I think they're going to be just on the outside, like 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. But if they can continue to win, they're going to be there. And the reality is if they lose the ACC championship game, they're most likely not getting in because of teams like Florida State just falling off a cliff and some of these other teams not exactly meeting expectations either.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the bad thing about and I understand why the SEC talks about it. They have all these teams that are ranked. But I also believe that a lot of these teams in the SEC should not be ranked, and they're not getting blown out like they should. Now, here's some interesting things to keep in mind. Here's some games that are going to have an impact on the CFP as we go, not only for ACC teams, but also for Notre Dame. Week 12, Virginia at Duke has implications. Duke is obviously not a pushover, so Virginia has to be very careful that they can come away with that win at Durham. NC State at Miami. Here's another opportunity to further dent Miami's chances of anything, because if they lose to NC State, then basically, I think you can pretty much just say goodbye to Miami. Here's a game I believe may have a huge implication on some things that maybe people are overlooking. Notre Dame at Pitt. I firmly believe that Pitt can and will beat Notre Dame. And if that's the case, Notre Dame gets bumped back out of the. I think that they're probably going to be in the CFP, but I think they're going to get bumped out. And especially if Pitt wins, Pitt moves into the top 25. Now, that doesn't put them into the CFP by any stretch, but it makes a big difference. The next week, week 13, here's another game that could very much impact the ACC championship game and the CFP. Pitt at Georgia Tech. Pitt again has the capability of defeating Georgia Tech, which would throw a monkey wrench into the ACC championship game. It probably would move Pitt up in front of Georgia Tech and maybe into the ACC championship. Louisville at SMU. Here are two teams that are also vying for a shot at the ACC championship game, and whoever wins that game is going to be bumping up as well. And then week 14, of course, you have Georgia at Georgia Tech. Now, if for some reason Georgia Tech can get through all of this nonsense prior and can knock off Georgia, that's going to that's going to be huge. That has implications that would move them back into the CFP more than likely, and of course, then you're looking at it's the overall record, but I think at that point you're looking at a team that's in the ACC championship game. So we'll see what happens. The next game in week 14, Miami at Pitt. Boy, there's a shootout. Here's a game that you may not think would have any implications. However, you have to look at the history here. Virginia Tech at Virginia. Virginia Tech has been a thorn in Virginia's side forever and a day, and that could throw a real monkey wrench into stuff. The next game is Kentucky at Louisville. Louisville smell, taste blood, and they want Kentucky. Okay, so that could be a big game for them and moving them further up in this overall picture. And then the final one, which doesn't have as much impact, but nonetheless, I think it's going to be a huge thing mindset-wise, Florida State and Florida. I think that's going to be a huge game that'll be a lot of fun to watch anyway. So a lot of teams there, Will. I mean, we're talking again, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Pitt, Louisville, SMU, and Miami is sort of lurking. And Miami's not completely out of the ballpark, on this whole thing yet, but they could be if they're not careful. So we'll see where this all kind of plays out. It's literally going to come down to the almost the last week of play, which I'll remind you, we have, after this coming week, we only have 3 more weeks of football left.
Yeah, I feel like the season just started.
Yeah.
Hey. But it's just been a wild roller coaster this whole season because of all the firings and just these like teams like Virginia, for example, coming out of nowhere to being ranked in the top, 15. And it's been a lot of fun. I hate that it's going to end soon.
Yeah. Well, speaking of something that's going to pick up the ball and run with it, because this is another sport that's going to be a wild ride this season. Men's and women's basketball begins this week, and we have a lot of teams, especially on the women's side, that are ranked in the preseason polls. Not so much over on the men's side. However, there's an awful lot of conversation, and I will invite you to go back and listen to our podcast with Jason Carmella talking about basketball in general. There's an awful lot of conversation going on that the ACC is slowly reemerging. They went into the dumps, and other conferences have sort of picked up and run with things. But I think we're looking at several teams here that are going to be very surprising and very strong. And they're not being talked about on the national stage because people forget about, if you're not there, if you're not delivering, they forget about you. And that's what's occurred with the ACC. Um, we'll see how that all plays out in the next couple of weeks because I think we're going to get a good feel. I'd say in the month of November and probably early week or two of December will let us know whether or not we have nationally ranked more nationally ranked teams in the ACC on the men's side than we do with preseason polls, which basically I think there's uh, two or three, depending on which poll you look at. So, but the women's side is phenomenal. That is going to be another absolutely wild ride. Looking at we'll have a lot of the polls and stuff will be on our website at accnation.net. And of course, we'll be talking about basketball on ACC Nation Net on TikTok, and also see him in a lot of different places talking about stuff. We'll be posting things. Your thoughts on basketball? Because I mean, as since we talked with Jason, there's been some things that have sort of been moving along as well. So
Yeah, and th this is such an interesting season for basketball. It feels like there are two clear leaders to win the league, Duke and Louisville. Obviously Duke because they continue to accumulate talent, and Cam Boozer's a name that has been out there as like the best player, one of the best players, probably one of the two best players in this recruiting class, this class of 2026 or 2025, excuse me. And he has his twin brother, Caden Boozer, on the team as well. And a lot of people think that this Duke team is going to be the team to beat. Meanwhile, Louisville loaded up on shooters in the portal. Isaac McNeely from Virginia, I think he's going to do really good things there. I honestly am going to spoil my standings. I'm picking Louisville to win the league this year.
yeah,
I just think they have a great combination of shooters who are going to be able to play a lot more inside outside. And I just think they're more experienced. And when it comes down to it, I think they're going to be able to handle things in a way Duke can't with all the freshmen. Um, I really like the potential of both NC State and Virginia with the new coaches, new talent. Actually, Jason sold me on NC State more than I'd already had been sold on. I really liked what Will Way brought in for this team, and bringing in some of those other guys he mentioned. I think it just only reinforced my beliefs in NC State being a top four team in the league. And I mentioned Virginia. I'm high on as well. I think they have a lot of potential. I watched their scrimmage against Villanova, and I really like what I saw in a lot of ways. Obviously, it's an exhibition game, so you're not going to take too much out of it.
sure.
The question is, who's fifth? There are several teams that can be contenders for that spot. I think a lot of people are high on Notre Dame this year. I'm not ruling out Clemson because I feel like Brad Brownell always, like ever since this the new NIL era, he's really made Clemson a really good team. Obviously, North Carolina is in there, and I'm skeptical of the Tar Heels, but I'm on SMU. Looks like they have a really good team again this year. Maybe Miami could sneak up in year one under Jay Lucas. There's a lot of teams in the middle of the pack in the ACC that I think are very much the same, and you can really put them sixth, you could put them 11th, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, we're going to find out pretty quick.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Oh, Tuesday night, the biggest game of the night on Tuesday is Texas taking on Duke down in Charlotte. We're going to find out right away what this Blue Devils team is made of. I mean, Texas isn't quite as good. It doesn't look to be
Right.
quite as good this year. Every year's new coach, Sean Miller coming in. I think the talent level is a little down, but I think the Blue Devils will win that game. But I'm just interested to see what this team can do.
Yeah, how they perform, what the end result is, and again, early season games for me are, uh, I I don't give them a whole lot of credence. I think that we all know that basically the basically from about mid-February on into the conference tournaments and then NCAA is where we start to see what teams are really all about. It takes sometimes about that long for them to sort of get it together and make it happen. If Duke comes out and just blasts Texas right up front, if it's a big win, that's a big message, and we'll see how everybody does. I'm liking Louisville. I think I would go with Louisville first and Duke second in that mix. Um, I, I'm so reluctant to say anything about North Carolina right at the moment, other than you guys have just disappointed me for a couple of years now, and you're gonna have to show me, man. You're just gonna have to show me. I can't say that they're gonna be up in that top tier because NC State, you're right. Virginia, you're right. Clemson, very possible. Notre Dame, definitely is a team. If you're not keeping an eye on them, they're going to smoke you. SMU, and I don't know. There's a lot of mid-tier teams which I think are going to really come of themselves through this process of playing together in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to see some awesome basketball finally again on the men's side. Again, the women's side, if you like basketball and you like to see a lot of winning, you just, hey, pick a women's team in the ACC because you're going to see a lot of kick butt ball over there. It's wonderful stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I'll just quickly go over the women's teams in the top 25. I've got Duke is at number 7,
Mhm.
NC State number 9, North Carolina at 11, Notre Dame at 15, Louisville at 20. Stanford is in the receiving votes, and we're going to find out a lot about a couple of these teams right away. Duke is taking on Baylor on Monday afternoon, noon Eastern. That game in Paris, France. Baylor's number 16 in the preseason ranking. So we're going to find out a lot about the Blue Devils in a high leverage game right away. We know their calling card is defense. Carol Lawson does an amazing job teaching defensive principles with this team, and they look to be the favorite in the ACC this season. And they're going to get tested right away.
Yeah. Okay. That's a look at what's going on with football and introducing you to what's coming up with basketball for men's and women's hoops in the ACC this week. I hope that you enjoy it all. There's lots of fun stuff. And don't forget, the first CFP rankings will come out in the middle of one or other basketball games, I think on Tuesday. So we'll see where football teams are positioned to possibly have some postseason play. Don't worry, it's the first one, so it doesn't mean a whole lot of anything. We know that it changes over the next couple of weeks. So let's see where that all plays out. All right, until next time, cheers.
School.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.